Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, a new kind of podcast where no topic is off limits. We're bringing in experts and owners to have the conversations we should be having as a dog community. Each week, a new guest will share firsthand experiences, educational resources, or professional guidance to help you learn and grow along with your dog. You won't get one perspective here, you'll get them all, because every dog is different and every owner is too.
You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk, or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms.
This episode is brought to you commercial-free by my friend and partner, Madisyn from Freed by Training. If you're a professional dog trainer or pet professional, I know you're exhausted from doing all the things to keep your business running. And one of the biggest strains can be wondering where your clients are going to come from this week, next week, or even next month. I have some good news for you. Mattison from Freed by Training is hosting a free marketing masterclass for dog business owners. Increase your sustainability by injecting your business with an organic marketing strategy. Imagine what it would do for your business, what it could free up for you to experience in your life if you didn't have to worry about having a steady stream of clients. Watch the free marketing masterclass Unleash Your Visibility at www.freedbytraining.com/unleash. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm En, and we're here with Josh as usual.
Hello.
And tonight we have a really special episode for you guys. Tonight we have Mattison and Madisyn, and we are going to let Mattison, who owns Freed by Training, do basically an intake evaluation for a new client with Mattison. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Yay, exciting. Well, I'm kind of just going to let Mattison take the reins here and treat this as if she was talking to Madisyn for a consultation. You might not hear a whole lot from Josh and I tonight, but I hope that you guys find this episode informative and kind of now understand what you should be looking and asking in interviews with trainers.
So I think actually, Madisyn, why don't we start with, do you go by Madisyn or do you have a nickname? Let's make this easier.
Yeah, I do have a nickname. I can go by Maddie.
Okay. If you want to go by Maddie and I'll go by Madisyn, I think that'll probably make it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you tonight, Maddie. I don't actually know anything. M left me so super in the dark, which is really fun for me. So this is literally like we've just met, and I'm really just, looking forward to learning more about your situation with your dog and hopefully creating some immediate solutions that you can kind of walk away with today, and then an idea of what a larger plan would look like.
She actually doesn't even have a dog. You're being punked.
Oh, my podcast. Yeah. My opinion doesn't matter here then.
I'm definitely excited. I'm very excited for this because this is the first time I've ever actually heard of like a virtual trainer. And it's hard for me because I live in a small town to get information without like learning from the internet. So I'm excited to learn a bunch about that.
Yeah. I started certainly training in person, but went fully virtual, actually not as a result of the pandemic, but because that's what I found to be most effective with my clients, because I use a totally different format where I actually talk to my clients every day. They get probably pretty sick of me, but there's a lot more just opportunities to adjust and learn and just get to know each other. So that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about you. And like I said, I don't know anything. So the first thing really I want to know is just your dog or your dogs. See, I don't even know. And what has you sort of really at the point that you're ready to seek out training advice or training help?
Okay, so I currently have 2 dogs. One is a Portuguese water dog named Milo. The other is a shelter. I got her as a shelter puppy, and I know that she's some type of pit mix. And she has just turned 1, and Milo's pretty close to being 2. So, and then also I pick up my new puppy Saturday, and his name is Jaeger, and he is a Great Dane. Yes. That is the reason
You're
I'm keeping
speaking my language. I have a spot, a very, very soft spot in my heart. It is the great desire of my heart to have a Great Dane at some point. But I rent, and they won't typically let you bring home animals of that size within apartments or rental units. So it hasn't been an opportunity for me yet. Okay, so first, I guess, talk to me about what beyond just bringing home the new dog is prompting the training. Have there been any problem behaviors in the past with Milo? And I'm sorry, what was your other dog's name?
Nova.
Nova. Okay, yeah. Have you had any problem behaviors or difficult moments with them in the past?
I would say yes and no. Not anything that's like completely out of control. There just may be things that we could work past, and I just don't have the ability to get that kind of training in person here. And so that's why I just need to learn more.
Yeah. So what type of moments are those? Are you talking about kind of areas of conflict between Milo and Nova where things have escalated, where maybe they've redirected on one another, or just moments that kind of felt not necessarily that they were fighting, but just felt unmanageable to you? Or are they just individual behaviors and you're struggling with, I don't know, Milo on the leash?
They are individual behaviors. Together, they're great and have never had a problem. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. It's just individual.
Okay, great. Well, then let's start at the top. Let's start with Milo. So Milo is almost 2, a Portuguese water dog. There was a dog, one of my favorite dogs that I've ever worked with. Worked with them 3 days a week for 18 months, and he was a poodle, not a Portuguese water dog, but very similar, similar breed group, similar temperament. And yeah, I just absolutely loved working with him. So how long have you had Milo?
I have had him his whole life, since he was 8 weeks old.
Okay. And what are the behaviors that you're struggling with Milo?
Honestly, when it comes to Milo, I'm not as worried about him. For him, he knows basically everything, like from sit, stay, all of that stuff he's good on. And he is naturally a calm dog. So, like, in public environments, he maybe, like, when he first gets there, he might be a little bit rowdy, but after that, he typically just lays down and he's good with, like, the recall and all of that stuff. It's more about me learning how to teach him the more advanced stuff to give him a challenge so he doesn't get bored.
Okay, yeah. But what does boredom look like in Milo?
He really just kind of paces around a little bit sometimes. Okay. But other than that, I mean, he doesn't really show me
like unwanted behaviors associated.
No, he doesn't.
That you can just tell that he wants more. Got it. Okay. How much does Milo weigh?
He is 65 pounds, I would say.
Okay, and is he neutered?
No, he is not.
Any allergies, medical issues, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Medications or supplements?
He does get some daily supplements, but one of them is just probiotic, and then he gets multivitamins, but that's really it.
Okay. Yeah, great. How would you describe his appetite?
He has a great appetite. I mean, when he eats all of his food.
Okay, great. So what prior training have you done with Milo? It seems like with him we have more goals than we do issues, but it also sounds like you've done some work with him. So tell me about your past training.
Honestly, everything that he knows is from me online with hours of YouTube videos and articles and just trying to teach him. And then if I couldn't figure something out, maybe I would get like a little app or something to try to help me like learn. And so everything with him has been that. There was one time when he was a puppy where we did a 6-week training course from someone local here, and they never taught him anything that he didn't already know, because coming to them, he knew everything that they taught him, and I told them that, but they kind of just ignored me on that one.
Okay. And how would you describe his learning ability?
He is a very, very fast learner, and he also loves to learn.
Okay.
Him, I have less issues with because the way that he's always been is just he wants to listen to me. He always has. He's never really, like, once he learns that he's not really supposed to do something, he really doesn't do it.
He's just a quick learner. He just tends to understand what's going to get him what he wants, what's not going to get him what he wants. Okay. Good to hear it. Okay. Go ahead.
He also, I think the only time that he ever does do something is if he doesn't understand. And that's something that I want to work on is like communication and learning how to do that.
So does he kind of get easily frustrated?
Sometimes he will, depending on like what it is. I would say actually yes, because sometimes if he doesn't get what he wants, he'll start doing like every single trick that he knows.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds about right.
Because he just wants the food.
Yeah. Okay. What was the most challenging part of training him?
I would probably say jumping. Him jumping was really hard. And sometimes he still does that if he's going to a kind of a new place.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Nova. So talk to me about Nova. You said she's right around 1.
Yes. She is complete opposite from him. She's very, very stubborn. And when she was a puppy, she will sometimes tear things up, but she, as an adult, doesn't really get the chance to do that because if I'm not there, she's always in her kennel. So the issue with Nova is definitely in public. She freaks out. Like, she can't contain herself. She's jumping everywhere. And it doesn't matter if you have food. If she's in public, it doesn't matter what you have on you. She does not care about anything except for jumping all over everywhere. And she will, like, she cannot ever just lay down or, like, in public.
No off switch. Doesn't seem to know how to chill.
Yes. And at home, she will listen to what you say, but I don't know how to explain this in a better way, but when she sits, she kind of slides and like she refuses to lay on the ground. She doesn't have any fur underneath, so I don't know if she's cold or like what it is, but it's like an awkwardness kind of. So it's hard to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have to come up with some strategies that, you wouldn't have had to maybe necessarily problem solve that with Fuzzy Milo, right? Where she's got a little naked belly. We probably need to get the station for her to have her kind of be able to lay on like a blanket or a mat or something to make that more comfortable. And I think by at least trying that would give us good information on if that was what was standing in her way. Because I think I know what you're talking about, where they just kind of shift back and slide down.
And she'll push off her and hump her back, and it's crazy.
Kind of hover off the ground. Yeah.
There is one other thing is that I don't want to overwhelm her, but it makes me feel awful to bring Milo in public and then leave Nova home. So if I do bring her, it's like, for example, the other day, she was freaking out in PetSmart so bad that she has a Kong harness that is like, it's a good harness. And she just completely wiggled out of it. And I had to like pick her up and bring her back in the car, and we couldn't even do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in my experience, the solution for this type of behavior, when it's especially difficult and really unmanageable to have both of them at the pet store, and it sounds like if you had Milo with you, you'd be golden, but you would just feel bad for leaving Nova at home. The solution, or at least the path to a solution, is probably the opposite of what you think. It's going to involve doing some specific training with just Nova and not with Milo. And, leaving Milo at home and working Nova in that environment solo and working up to where Milo is at, because I think it adds a whole other layer in having a second dog there, even if they're really well trained.
The one thing I will say is we do that with her quite often, but she still reacts the same way because there are other people. So I don't know. I don't want to overwhelm her. So maybe I shouldn't bring her into a store yet or something.
If she is at that level, I think she's probably not ready. And that's probably going to take even some, individual training outside of that environment to get her ready. That is a highly concentrated and excitable, it sounds like struggling from excitement, just absolute excitement. You're dealing with hyperarousal. Her nervous system is going all over the place. And there are, potentially other things mixed in there. I don't know totally yet if she maybe has some nervousness around people or dogs, or, some pet stores have cats or ferrets or other things, or birds, right? That could be, tapping into some prey drive. And then we have a whole nother ball game, which, that is like sending them into overdrive. So I think probably a pet store for her is not step one, and we'll have to start somewhere a little bit easier first. And then when she's ready and she's really excelling in those easier environments, that's when we take her to the pet store solo, and probably going to have to, assess each time if the environment is appropriate. Maybe there's even an easier pet store, that gives you that in between that doesn't have the live animals. I don't know if your pet store does. Some of the ones around here do.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit more about, and I mean like describe in as much detail as you can, what these behaviors look like when she is really, in public and freaking out and jumping everywhere at people. Is it at dogs? Like, I want you to tell me physically, what does she look like?
So as soon as we pull up to the store, she's like in the back seat whining and like tapping her little paws, freaking out. And then as soon as you get her on that leash, she will sprint, and you have to kind of catch her because she will spring out of the car if you are not right there with that leash ready to hook her.
All right, Maddie, that's where we start. We start with the car. Okay. The car is its own exciting environment now. It predicts going to all the fun places. Again, it doesn't seem to me so far with what you've said that Nova's dealing with anything other than just she is, oh my gosh, she's loving life a little too much, coming hot. And so, yeah, I would say work on the car, probably get either a different leash, because it sounds like that specific leash has a lot of excitement. And I'm going to want you to do some car work on a longer leash somewhere nowhere near the pet store, where we are just working on her being calm in the car, coming out of the car really, really calmly, getting back into the car and not having it be this sprint from the car to Disneyland, right? But it is for her. It seems like the best day on earth, best day ever. And we can reinforce maybe some better leash manners, maybe a better, energy level going into that store once we have taught those skills in a different context, in a much easier context.
Yeah. Okay. That really makes a lot of sense.
Now, tell me about their relationship, Nova and Milo. Like, you said that they do really well together. Beyond that, talk to me about what do they like to do together? How do they like to spend their time together? How can you tell that they've had enough of each other?
So when they're together, what I will say is the only issue with Milo that I usually have, besides maybe a jump or two, would be when he is with Nova. If she acts excited, he acts the same way when they are together. When he is apart from her, it's a complete different story.
Yeah.
But with her, when they are together, they're just playing tug or like just playing around, running and chasing each other. Sometimes they play fetch together, but they really, when they get tired of each other, there's not normally nips or verbal cues or anything. It's just Nova lays down on her bed and she goes to sleep, and then he leaves her alone pretty much. He kind of knows when she goes to her bed that she's done.
Okay. Is Nova the one that tends to be done first?
I would say on most occasions, yes.
That would ring true with their breed groups. The bulldog breeds they have very, very big energy, but it's a very short fuse. And the sporting dogs, I believe the Portuguese water dog is a sporting dog. I don't claim to know all of the breed groups, but they have a lot of energy and a lot of potential. They are, at least the poodles I've known, have been Energizer bunnies. Okay, so I do want to come back to some specific strategies, but let's talk about Jaeger. So tell me Tell me what's going on. When's he coming? What's the setup? Talk to me about your goals.
So my thing with him is I really, really need him to be kennel trained, and I need him to be potty trained as fast as possible. Those are my top two. Every time I get a puppy, those are definitely my top two. I would bring him home on Saturday, so he's going to have a kennel. I'm not sure if I should keep it in my room or in the guest room where it will be. I was going to ask you about that, which is why I didn't decide yet.
Sorry, I'm going to go a little bit off track and actually bounce back for just one question. Is Nova altered? Has she been spayed?
Oh, yes, she has.
Okay, great. And I'm assuming Jaeger, well, I don't want to assume. Is Jaeger a male or a female?
Jaeger is a male.
Okay. Didn't want to misgender Jaeger. Okay. So talk to me about Nova's kennel training journey.
Nova is kennel trained also. The only dog that I have that sleeps in the room with me is Milo, and that is it. And that is because when I got him, I did not know very much. Like, compared to what I know now, I knew nothing. And I did make a few mistakes with him when he came home, and I babied him a lot. And he stays in the room, not because he can't stay in the kennel, but because there are no issues with that, like with his behavior and everything. So he just stays in the room, and Nova sleeps in her kennel, and she's fine. I mean, she doesn't whine or anything.
Okay. But you found it pretty straightforward to kennel train her, or was it difficult? What was that process like for you guys?
Well, when she first came home, I brought the kennel in the room, and she did whine a little bit, but I kind of ignored her. And then if it got to a point of like screaming for a long period of time, then I'd be like, or like something like that. And once she got used to being in the kennel, she was honestly fine.
Okay. And do you see any behaviors now from her, like whining or agitation to get out of the kennel, or does she seem good overnight? Good when you're gone?
Overnight, she is good. When I'm gone, she's good. The only time I would say there's any like whining would be taking her out of the kennel. She will like tap her feet, and it's like a very slight whine, and usually I just kind of stop and wait until she finishes, and then I'll let her out.
Until she finishes her tap dancing performance?
Yes.
I see it. I can picture it. I know the type. Tippity taps. Yep. Okay. So we're gonna pivot back to Jaeger now. How old is Jaeger?
He is currently 8 weeks. He is 8 weeks, but we get him on Saturday because he just turned 8 weeks.
Okay. So with him being that young, I would advise keeping the kennel in your bedroom for now, even if you plan to transition it somewhere else, because for those first few nights, he's going to feel a lot more comfortable not sleeping totally alone. I also recommend raising the kennel so he kind of is at level of where your head is going to be, so he can really see you. He doesn't have to be directly next to you. He can be raised up and several feet away, but just so he's kind of level with you and can see you. It's also going to make it a lot easier for you to hear when he whines, because for at least a short period of time, he's going to have to go out regularly, and that includes during the night. So it's much easier for us to hear. And the quicker that we hear and can get them out, the more successful that we tend to be with the potty training.
Yeah.
Okay, so the kennel training and the potty training are actually tied together. That is a sort of a good thing, right? Because we can work on those through kind of the same thing, which is just a really good schedule. You got to get them on a really good schedule. For puppies, I always recommend set food and water times. We don't want to free feed at that time. We want to make sure we know when everything goes in, so we can kind of time when it's going to come out and already be where we want them to be going. Anytime that we can't directly supervise pup is probably going to be in the kennel. Maybe you can get a pen and have a like a bed area, and maybe a little play area with a couple toys, and then a food pack. That would be an alternative. But typically at that age, we're wanting to get them outside every roughly 2 hours. to make sure we can get them onto that schedule. And then my frame of, when do we sort of advance that is when we're looking at bladder muscle control, it really doesn't develop and lock in a big way until closer to 16 weeks.
Mhm.
Now, that's just an average. Some dogs are certainly ahead of the curve, and some dogs are certainly not there at 16 weeks. And we have things like bladder infections and UTIs that can set that a little bit off track. But in general, starting at 16 weeks, it's about 4 months, they can be expected to hold their bladder for about 4 hours. And then you can add on another hour for every month up until 10 months, 10 hours. It's about the most that we want to expect our dog, to have to hold it.
Yeah.
That being said, if you have a puppy that is under 16 weeks and you're on a good schedule, you're getting them out every 2 hours, you've had no accidents for 2 or 3 days, I think it's time to bump that up. Maybe go 2.5 hours. Maybe be bold and go for 3. You may have a couple accidents. You may have to scale it back, but once you have a couple of days without an accident, you can feel free to push it, because what you're doing is really helping them develop those, like the strength of those bladder muscles. Create a really predictable routine and consistent routine for going to the bathroom. So I like to use multiple behaviors and a verbal cue. So what that looks like is having a specific door that you're going to exit out the same door. I like to ask for a normally sit, and then one of a couple different things, sometimes paw. If you are someone that wants your dog to ring bells, you can do paw or touch, because those can both be translated to a bell or a button or something. And then I'm going to say the verbal cue, the verbal word that I associate. That could be potty, do business. I use hurry, go hurry, or let's hurry. And then you're going to clip on the leash, and then you're going to head outside. And then as soon as you see that either Jaeger is actually going to the bathroom or like about to go to the bathroom, doing that pre-potty sniff that we all know how to spot, once you get to know his specific pre-potty sniff, you're going to say it again. You're going to say, do your business, Jaeger. And then as soon as you see him start doing it, you're going to tell him he's a really, really good boy, and you're going to pull out the treat that you hid. And when he's done peeing, he's going to get that treat. And repeat. And my approach on accidents in the house, well, first of all, they happen. We all know they happen. They're not called, never happens. They're called accidents. They happen. Is that if you see the accident and you see the pup and it's already happened, it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Rather than adjust your window to hopefully be ahead of it next time. But I believe if you see your pup actively having an accident inside, that's a really good opportunity to interrupt that behavior, get him to the right zone, the right area, and pay it like he didn't do anything wrong. Because that's a really clear lesson of not this, that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to communicate to a dog effectively, don't do this behavior. Across the board, I think that's really, really difficult to communicate. But I think it's pretty easy to teach, do this instead. And we love alternative behaviors in the world of dog training. It gives us so much more information to provide to our dogs.
Yes.
And the kennel is going to be key to keeping him contained when you can't directly supervise him. But don't be shy about, using baby gates to zone him into different areas, or to use a drag line or just like a leash that he, a dollar store leash that he just drags around the house. That's another easy way in these first few weeks, especially, to be able to really, really quickly get him outside. If you think he has to go to the bathroom, like if he's free roaming and you've done this potty routine a couple times now and you see him go and sit by that door, by God, take him out, right? That is the sign.
Yeah.
That is the signal.
There is one thing that I did have a lot of trouble with the other two, was as they were puppies, both of them really hated like teeth cleaning and the nails and the bath, all of that. So that's one thing that I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know how to
some
make that
cooperative
work if
grooming.
they don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think that starting and learning how to teach these things with Jaeger while he is, little puppy sponge and in these key phases of socialization, I think this will give you a lot of comfort in the skills and behaviors that you can kind of then go back and teach to Milo and Nova. to make that a little bit easier. But cooperative grooming and cooperative care is something that, I mean, it's a never ending thing. I've got a list so long of things to work on with my own dog. But I appreciate that you're looking for ways to make it a little bit more enjoyable. So the kind of low hanging fruits there would be to get a suction cup lick mat that you can put in your bathtub, to have them lick like some yogurt or something, or some canned food while you're giving them a scrub. That can make it a little bit less stressful. I actually do have a specific thing that I wanted to mention when I was talking about sort of gating off your home, because I do think that it is important to zone your home and kind of limit where puppy goes. But I think it's very common for folks to want to use their kitchen, which seems like a great idea because the floors are normally easiest to clean. But I've heard, unfortunately, too many tales of dogs turning on stoves, and Jaeger is not going to be a low rider.
Yeah.
He's going to be taller than I am by the time he's like 6 months. So we probably don't want to use the kitchen as a zone for him. And just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. You did say something about socialization. That is something that I did want to ask about.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you did. So yeah.
When it comes
to a specific question, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes. So when it does come to the puppy, that is one thing that I knew absolutely nothing about with either of them. And it took me like 1 year to even figure out what socialization actually was, because I think a lot of people think that it's with other dogs and meeting other dogs, and I thought that's what it meant at first, because that's what people kind of think.
It's a terrible word. For what it is. It's the wrong word. And I've been saying that.
Yes, I just now am figuring out, like, no, this is what it is. Like, maybe 6 months ago, I figured it out. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is why he's acting like this. So that is one thing that I did want to talk about.
Yeah.
When to start it. How to
kind of dig into that. Yeah, absolutely. So I agree. I think socialization is the wrong word because it gives absolutely the implication of social interactions, which is not at all what you do to start, or for every dog, I should say. Because, of course, social interactions could be part of socialization, but that is a narrow slice, as well as being a more potentially advanced version than you'd be ready for with a brand new pup. So I want you to focus on just exposure and just getting exposed to as many different things as is tolerable, right? We don't want to do too much in a day or a week. But when he's this young, you really do have the opportunity to create really positive experiences to sights, sounds, smells. That could look like putting your dog in a wagon or in the back of your car or on a big blanket and just letting them experience the world, but not interacting. And really at that age, until he's vaccinated a little bit better, we don't necessarily want to take him to anywhere that's going to be high dog traffic, right? You know, keeping him at home and not experiencing the world isn't exactly what his immune system needs either, but focus on exposure and getting to experience different environments without necessarily interacting with a bunch of people or dogs. Another big part of socialization is sounds, right? How many dogs have you heard of that are so affected by noises and things that they've never encountered before later on in life? That's what socialization is designed to avoid. We want to avoid Jaeger's first experience of anything, but more importantly, a bad experience. We don't want that to happen during what's called a fear period, which happen, like, that's going to be around 6 to 8 months is when you can kind of, dig into that and worry about that. I mean, before then, we could talk about that, and you should look into that before then, but you don't need to worry about that now or next week. You have to do all of the preventative work now so that when you're in the fear period, he doesn't have these brand new experiences that could be a part of his everyday life, because that can be really detrimental to this socialization process, which is really just them learning to deal with the world, the modern human world that domesticated dogs live in. So think about, and actually there is an app for that. You can go onto Google and download puppy socialization checklist, and print it out and put it on your fridge and check it out as you go.
Yeah.
And that's going to give you a bunch of everything to be able to know what are these things that my puppy should be familiar with. And it could vary based on where you live, for sure, right? If you're in the heart of a city, you've got some different sounds than if you're not. But if you're not a pen to paper person, there's an app that I've actually recommended a ton of my clients to, and they've said that it's great, and it's called Pup Standing. And what it does is it actually not only lists out all of these things that you should be socializing. I'm doing air quotes for the rest of the world. Air quotes, socializing your dog too. Not only is it going to list them out and come up with all the things that you never would have thought of, if it's a sound, it's going to have a sound clip. And it's also going to allow you to track your puppy's reaction to all of these. So over time, you can see how you're doing and make sure that you're sort of checking all of those boxes. So that's something to think about. Don't overdo it. A couple of things a day, and think about too, because I know it's a lot when there's a new puppy. And it's a little bit off topic of socialization, but making sure that you have still dedicated Milo time and still dedicated Nova time.
100%.
And that they're learning, like, yes, we need to teach Jaeger to respect when they don't really want to be messed with, but we need to also, it's equally important that we are teaching and showing them that we're going to advocate for them. So they don't, start to feel like they have to step in and handle it. That's the last thing that we want, right?
Yeah.
And Jaeger is going to outweigh both of them, probably combined, maybe. So we certainly don't want any tension there. We want it to be really just relaxed and harmonious relationship. And it sounds like Milo and Nova have a really healthy kind of give and take relationship, and they seem like they're really well matched for each other.
They are definitely best friends.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what other questions do you have about any of them? All of it.
Okay. Let me pick. I literally have stuff written down, so let me pick.
Love it.
My favorites. So maybe the first thing that I do want to talk about is with Milo, it took forever to get him to stop jumping, like forever. And I want to know, like, my trainer told me to reward when he does right. Then if you don't pick the right time to reward, he could get confused. So I want to clear that up.
Yeah, that is a great question. And jumping is a behavior that I know a lot of people struggle with. And there are a lot of different ways to work on this behavior. And I think as a trainer, we have to be really like agile and flexible and willing to try different things, because this is one of those behaviors that you think you've got the right method, and then that dog comes along that proves you wrong and makes you learn another way. Like, this is that one. So I think my first question for you would be if you have a clear marker system, and if that's not something that you're familiar with, feel free to say that and I can explain what that means.
I do not know what that means.
Okay. So a marker system or a marker would be something like the word yes or a clicker to let Milo know he did right. Or are we just, when he does what we like, are we kind of just getting him the biscuit?
Oh, yes. Okay. I do that. I just didn't know the way you said it. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your marker? Do you use the word yes, or do you kind of switch it up and sometimes it's a yes and a good boy?
We use the word yes or good boy, either one.
Okay. So one thing I would suggest is having one single consistent marker word that is going to mean every single time, I like what you just did, you're about to get a treat. And that is going to be so much more important than the timing of the delivery of the treat is going to be the timing of that word. So your question of, I'm not giving him the treat at the right time, it's actually the marker, that word yes, that is more important. So we want to ideally catch Milo offering the better behavior in that moment so we can yes him, and then we can follow it up with that treat. So what I like to do is actually rehearse this over and over again through basically a loop where we are going to get tens, hundreds of repetitions of Milo approaching you and offering a sit, because right now he doesn't have a whole lot of history of that. Right now he has a lot of history of approaching you and jumping, and we want him to offer something new and have a huge history of that to be able to fall back on. And this is actually a really, really fun sort of food training game for dogs. So you're just going to grab his regular food if he likes it. You can mix in some high value treats if you'd like. And as he approaches you, you're going to hold down a piece of food and lure him into a sit. Or if he knows the word sit, you can just ask for it. The moment the butt touches the ground, yes, and then hand him a piece of food. Then you're going to say free if he doesn't have a release word. You're going to use the word free. If he already has a release word, something you would tell him to like get out of a stay or to move through a doorway if you have a word for that. And you're going to toss a piece of food for him to chase. And then when he goes and gets that piece of food, my hope and my thought, because Milo is a smart boy, is that he's going to turn around and run right back to you for his next piece of food. And again, we want him to, as he approaches you, offer that sit. So for the first couple times, we might actually say the word sit, or we might just hold the piece of food down, and as he approaches, just tip his head up. So he goes into that sit the moment the butt touches the ground, yes. And then hand him the treat, and then toss it until, lo and behold, one of these times, as he's running towards you, he just like skirt goes into that sit. Yes, pay, right? Now we have this pattern that we can just do over and over again to have him offering the sit on approach. And then you're going to practice this in a way more exciting time. Only once he's shown you he can do it in a not very exciting time. Because my guess is that he's not jumping randomly. It's probably like when you just come home, or maybe you have something that's really exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we start in a kind of boring time, and then we try it in a much more, excitable time.
Yeah.
And I would also recommend having him on a leash at that time, so we can kind of manage that. So we can manage it a little bit better. When dogs can kind of fully rehearse a behavior, they just get really good at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, guys, we're unfortunately going to have to cut you off, but I am pretty sure that the two of you can get reconnected and continue this conversation. I will make sure that you guys are connected on Instagram. I hope, Maddie, that this was really helpful for you. Madisyn is, one of my favorite trainers, and I have a special place in my heart for her. So thank you again for being here tonight. And truly appreciate both of you for being vulnerable enough to do this on the podcast to help educate listeners on what you should be looking for in a trainer and an interview with a trainer, and the kinds of questions that your trainer should be asking you beforehand. If you guys paid attention, you'll notice that Madisyn asked some really in-depth questions that are very, very important to know when it comes to training a dog. And I hope that this was really educational and helpful. And if you guys have any training needs, you can always reach out to Madisyn at Freed by Training. So thank you for being here tonight on this episode of Straight Up Dog Talk, and we will see you guys next week.
Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited, produced, and co-hosted by Josh Wasta under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode, and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madisyn Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.